everyone. So how are you doing today? Good? That's great. So my name is Deblina Sarkar, and I'm a neurotechnologist. I study the brain. But my background is in electronics engineering. And today I'm going to share with you the story of my journey from being an electronics engineer to a neuroscientist, and also tell you about the amazing symphony that exists between these two fields. So all of you must have noticed how your laptop heats up after working for some time. The heat generated is so high that a few days ago, I even cooked an egg on my laptop. So let us understand where this heat is coming from. So your computer has 1 billion switches in it. And in those switches, the electrons need to jump over an energy barrier to cause current flow. And when the switch is off, the barrier is high, and very few electrons go to the other side. And when you want to turn on the switches, we lower the barrier by applying a voltage, so then more electrons can cross to the other side, and the current increases. However, this way of switching has a fundamental limitation as to how low the supply voltage can be. Because of that reason, billions of dollars of energy is used by the computer industry and just thrown away as heat. The fuels used cause the production of greenhouse gases, which contribute towards global warming. To solve this problem, during my PhD, I designed a new kind of switch where instead of making the electrons jump over an energy barrier, I made them just sneak through the barrier. Now, you must be wondering, how is it possible? Because we cannot just walk through a wall like that. So while the classical physics says that you cannot, but the quantum mechanics says that it is possible because every particle has wave properties, and these waves can penetrate through a wall. Using this technique, I showed that it is possible to overcome the fundamental limitations of present technology and reduce the power by more than 90%. Okay, good. This solves the power problem, but there is another issue. Suppose there is this guy here who is trying to just sneak through the barrier and go to the other side of the wall. But by the time he reaches the other side of the wall, can you imagine how he would look like? Oops. So that's what is happening to the poor electrons. Because the electron waves decay as they pass through the barrier, the current gets reduced. So if we have to overcome this problem, we'll have to make the barrier very, very thin. And that is why I use an atomically thin channel material, which is 100,000 times smaller than the thickness of your hair. By using this material, I showed it is possible to reduce the decay of electron waves significantly. Another advantage of using this material is that you can also make the size or the length of your switch very small. Because in the world of electronics, the rule of thumb is that thinner your switch, smaller it can also be in its length. And being small is beautiful. Because smaller your switches, more and more of these switches you can fit inside the chip, and thus can increase the functionality of your chip. I really call this new generation of electronics the brainy electronics, because all these capabilities make them very smart. They consume a minuscule amount of power, they occupy a very small area, and they can lead to multiple functionalities. So during my PhD, while I was developing these new kinds of devices for electronic computations, I also got interested in other non-electronic computational systems. And of course, the most amazing one is the biological computer that sits above our shoulders, and that's our brain. The human brain, which is this amazingly complex organ and the boss of our body, it weighs just 3 pounds, but it's the brain that makes us what we are today. And if we peep inside the brain, we will see that it's formed of hundreds of billions of computational elements called neurons. And these neurons, they communicate with each other using electrical and chemical signals. So the brain, it does all its functions, but consumes only 20 watts of power, similar to a mere light bulb. But if we were to design a hypothetical supercomputer to simulate the brain, it will consume 10 gigawatts of power, enough to light up 500 million of those light bulbs. So the brain can be thought of as an ultimate example of low-power computational system. However, at present, we understand very little as to how the brain computes or how the brain works. If we could understand the brain, that could revolutionize the way electronic computations are done today. But that's not the only reason, not even the main reason I got interested in the brain. 1 billion people around the world, they suffer from different brain diseases, schizophrenia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, depression, and there's no effective cure for them. If we could understand the brain, that will help us develop new methods and new cures to combat those brain diseases. So why is it so difficult to understand the brain? The electronic circuits, we develop them ourselves. So we know all the individual components and how those components are connected to each other. But Mother Nature has designed the circuits in the brain, and it's so complicated, so intricate, that we human beings have not been able to decipher them yet. And if we zoom into a small region of the brain, we will see that it's formed of a dense jungle of biomolecules, which will look probably similar to the gum wall in Seattle. So in my present research, I'm developing a super resolution technique that helps us to decipher those dense jungles and look into the molecular building blocks of the brain. So in the images here, you are seeing two proteins in red and green. They occur in a region where two neurons connect to each other. The region is named synapse. So if you just look at these proteins using a conventional light microscope, you'll see two overlapping blobs, and not much information is revealed, and that's the left image. But when you use the super resolution technique, the arrangement of the two proteins, it unfolds beautifully. We are currently using this technique to understand the components of the brain in more details and how they're connected. But knowing the structure is not good enough. We also need to know how the components function as to how the neurons talk to each other. But there are 100 billion neurons in our brain. To understand how these neurons, they work in an ensemble to give rise to our thoughts, our perceptions, our behavior, we need to record from billions of neurons at the same time, a very formidable task. The techniques for brain recording that are existing now, they can record from only a very small fraction of the neurons. An example of such techniques are the optical sensors or the electrodes. There are also techniques which can record from the whole brain, but they measure only an average effect. An example of such technique is the magnetic resonance imaging. So we do not have any technology right now which can measure from each and every neuron of your brain. An ideal solution would be if we could make a tiny device that can go into each and every neuron of your brain and measure the activity from there. Now, the brainy electronics could solve this brain problem, not the conventional electronics, because conventional electronics will be too big and they will not fit inside the neuron. Moreover, they will dissipate so much heat that it will just fry up the brain cells. So if I can cook an egg on my laptop, you can well imagine what those electronics will do to your brain. But the devices that I had been developing are extremely low power. Moreover, they are extremely small, so they can easily fit inside a neuron. In addition, since they are made up of this ultra-thin material, they are flexible and soft, and they form a compatible interface with our soft biological systems. Now, you must be wondering how this technology can be used to record the activity of the brain cells. So when a neuron becomes active and wants to talk to other neurons, the voltage inside the neuron increases. And I have shown that my devices are 10,000 times more sensitive to changes in voltage compared to conventional electronics. So this technology I developed initially for solving the power crisis of information technology, but I aim to unleash its great potential to solving a major challenge in understanding the brain function. Now, suppose we get to a point that we can measure the activity of each and every neuron from our brain. The implications are huge. With that knowledge, it will be possible to replace damaged or dysfunctional parts of the brain with artificial implants. Suppose the connecting link between two neurons is broken. It will be possible to bridge that gap using an electronic chip designed to mimic the functionality of that connection. Again, these devices have to be extremely small and low power. And with such devices, going beyond just repairing broken brains, it will be possible to even augment our brain and enhance its capabilities. So the electronic devices, they work much faster than the brain cells because electrons are super light and they can run very fast. But the computations in the brain, they involve movement of heavy ions or structural changes of proteins, which takes time. So if we could replace parts of our brain with electronic counterparts, it will be possible that maybe you will be able to think faster. Maybe we'll be able to make ourselves more intelligent, enhance our memory, and expand the world of our imagination. So all these things will not happen very fast, and it will take time. But I believe that it is possible. And how soon that happens depends on how curious we are, how passionate we are in making new discoveries. Because we can solve the brain and transcend it beyond its biological limitations, and then go on to solve the other mysteries in the universe. Thank you very much.